All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, I, Marek Whincup, would like to discuss a few things today. The first thing I would like to discuss is Islam. And more specifically, the concept of jihad. So, the word jihad is often translated as holy war, and you'll often see it appear in headlines when some militant group, let's say Al-Qaeda or ISIS or whatever else, has committed some atrocity and is using this word in an attempt to legitimize what they've done. But in reality, such acts are not true to the spirit of jihad as traditionally understood, nor is it entirely accurate to translate jihad as holy war. So, an initial definition of jihad, which is useful to start with, is that literally it means to strive or to struggle, as in to strive or struggle for a cause. But further connotations we can discover by analyzing a famous hadith, or recorded saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, in which, upon returning from a conflict, he said to one of his companions, "You have now returned from the lesser jihad, jihad al-asghar, to the greater jihad, jihad al-akbar." So what this means really is that the lesser jihad is simply a reflection, a lesser reflection, that is, of the greater jihad, which is not combat, but which is inward contemplation. This can take the form of prayer, reading of scriptures as we see, fasting, or anything else which is directed at purifying the soul of those parts of the person which incline towards wrongdoing. Now, the reason why the jihad al-akbar, the greater jihad, is the one which is contemplative, can be seen in the Quran, chapter 93, verse 4, which says, "The next life is certainly far better for you than this one." So although the more worldly jihad, which consists in combat, has a more immediately palpable effect on the world, it's nevertheless subject to the same ephemerality or transience to which the material world itself is subject. Whereas any action committed with respect to the soul will last eternally, as the soul does in the Islamic belief system. A few other caveats to the term is that a jihad must follow Islamic ethics, which is to say that it is not allowed to kill civilians or to destroy places of worship or many other things of that nature. And additionally, that it must be religious in nature. So while the Battle of Badr, undertaken in the year 624 with the intent of not having the Islamic community wiped off the face of the earth, would be a jihad, the First World War, engaged in by the Ottoman Caliphate for purely secular political reasons, could not be considered a jihad, since it was not for religious reasons and would instead be relegated to the term harb. Now, another caveat is that its goal must be to take a pre-existing state of disorder and to transform it into a state of order. This will be important when we get into the symbolism of the sword. Now, the aforementioned hadith established that the inward contemplative jihad is greater than the outward combative jihad. But nevertheless, the fact that both of these are referred to by the same term indicates that there must be a strong relationship between them. So the relationship at work here is really the relationship of microcosm to macrocosm, which is an idea found in many cultures which posits an analogous relationship between the individual being and the world around it. What this means in the Islamic context is that the divine attributes, which are found throughout the Quran, are also to be found both in the world at large as well as in every person, and therefore that a person who has mastery over themselves and knowledge over themselves will correspondingly have mastery of knowledge of the universe and vice versa. Additionally, this means that while the lesser jihad is concerned with turning social disorder into social order, analogously, the greater jihad consists in turning spiritual disorder into spiritual order. So they do the same thing, simply on different scales. So finally, finally for this topic anyways, we arrive at the symbolism of the sword, which, as one might imagine, is similar to the symbolism of the jihad, but with a few aspects which are worth noting in which it is different. So firstly, traditionally a khatib, or preacher, would wield a wooden sword while delivering a sermon, which in that context leads the sword to symbolize the ability of the divine word to vanquish falsehood. It takes on an added significance when we consider the Zulfikar, which is the two-edged sword associated with Ali, one of the major figures in Islam, in which case it takes on a similar symbolism to that of the two-edged sword, which issues from the mouth of Christ in the book of Revelation, which is to say that it symbolizes the ability of the word to both create and destroy. In other words, it's two opposing forces which are united in one vessel, which can be the blade or the word, with there being no difference between the two. In the same vein, we could say more broadly that the two-edged sword represents the the unity which lies at the heart of all things, even which seem to outwardly contradict each other. Hold on. One second. Oh yeah, okay, so in this sense, it reflects the first half of the Islamic Declaration of Faith, or Shahada, which says there is no God except God, which is arguably the religion's most distilled expression of the unity which lies at the heart of all multiplicity. In this sense, the scholar Syed Hossein Nasr has intriguingly noted that the Shahada, when depicted in calligraphy, tends in its horizontal length to take on visual appearance resembling a sword. And so, in this sense, we see that the sword not only symbolizes the Jihad al-Asghar, but also symbolizes on a deeper level the Jihad al-Akbar in its use in the dhikr, or remembrance of God in the Islamic tradition. Now, so a sword is made of metal, and copper is a metal. You know who you wouldn't want to deliver your copper to you? A Nasir. Please stand by for just a second as I change into my topic 2 outfit. All right. So the second topic that I would like to discuss today is one of my favorite historical figures, A. Nasir, who is perhaps one of the most notorious scam artists of all time, and also a real role model to myself. So, for context, Sumer is the earliest known civilization, being from modern-day southern Iraq. This civilization has the earliest writing ever found, which still exists because it was written on clay tablets, which have a greater longevity than we would find in, say, paper, parchment, or most other forms of writing. Often people would write their commercial transactions on clay tablets, which means that much of the earliest writing to which we have access is in the form of transcriptions of business transactions, what kind of goods were delivered, how much it cost, and so on. Okay, so in the early 20th century, an archaeologist excavated A. Nasir's house in the ruins of the city of Ur, with the house being dated around 1750 BC. And the compound was located at a major trade route and contained many clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform writing. On closer look, however, it was found that the clay tablets were all letters of complaint for A. Nasir's shady business practices. Okay, so A. Nasir was something of a jack of all trades, but he was particularly well known for trading in wholesale copper ingots. So in one room of his house were more than a dozen letters of complaint from various people whom he had apparently wronged, with his crimes including the selling substandard copper, refusing to refund poor quality goods, and also possibly stealing silver. The sheer volume of complaints is such that the time allotted to this talk could not hope to cover them all. But suffice it to say that the impression we get is that he was something of a menace and was notorious throughout the city of Ur and even in foreign lands. Maybe the craziest thing about A. Nasir's escapades, however, is the fact that he had an entire room in his house dedicated just to stashing the letters of complaint which people had filed against him, indicating that his ability to scam people, and the hatred which they resultantly bore for him, was a major source of pride for him, which I find to be quite entertaining. And anyways, this topic does not have a lesson really, except that maybe one way to be remembered millennia later is to scam a lot of people out of a lot of money. But overall, I just wanted to make some elementary remarks about A. Nasir and why I find him interesting. And this brings me to the third topic, the final thing I would like to discuss today. So, where are we? We're at a TED Talk, right? Okay. So, the word TED got me thinking. And I was thinking that it would be in the spirit of the event just to raise awareness for all the people who've been named Ted, both good and bad. So, without further ado, this is Ted Danson, Ted Kaczynski. Again, they don't all have to be good. It's just, famous Teds. Teddy Roosevelt. Ted Bundy. Again, they don't have to be good. Teddy Roosevelt. I have not seen this movie, but I'm told the character is named Ted, so I was convinced to enjoy it. And finally, Ted Kennedy, another person about whom I don't know anything, but his name was Ted. So, now, I would like to end off with a joke. It's kind of an intellectual joke, so not everybody here is going to get it. But, okay, hopefully I remembered it correctly. So how it goes is, two penguins are driving a car. Okay, now, the penguin who's driving says, "How do we change the antenna?" To which the penguin who's in the passenger seat responds, "No antenna, 4 wheels." All right, thank you everybody.